Okay, guys, today we're going to talk all about what's happening in the rental market with property management. I've got my girl, Bethany Hunter, who is our business development manager for our Bulimba and New Farm offices. She does everything involving our landlords, investors, tenants, everything property management for our offices. So, hi, Beth. Thanks for coming
Hi,
and
thank you.
chatting.
Thanks for
Yeah.
having me. I
So
appreciate it.
there's a lot of talk about what is going on with the government stimulus packages, obviously for small business, as well as what the Queensland Government is actually helping and offering tenants and landlords right now. So
Yeah.
this is a really hot topic. So I would love to get from you, you are on the ground talking to people, tenants, landlords every day. What is kind of the most recent that's, there's a lot of new things coming every single day. It's very confusing for tenants and landlords to keep up with what's changing. But if you want to give, I'd love for you to give a summary of maybe on a tenant's perspective, what has come down the pipe? What options do they have right now during this COVID-19?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a couple of options for tenants that are definite and that they've been finalised. You've probably heard the names of them being Job Seeker and Job Keeper. So those are the two major ones that tenants can apply for. Job Seeker, if there's been a lot of our tenants that have lost employment and have applied for that. So is some eligibility criteria that you have to meet to get these sorts of things, and you do have to be an Australian citizen. Those sorts of things. All of that information is kind of listed on the government websites of what criteria you have to meet. And then JobKeeper is the government package for businesses as well. So obviously, they've given that to businesses to try to keep people employed, which has worked for a lot of people. But once again, not everyone is eligible because there's some revenue criteria that you have to meet for that as well. I think it's 30% loss of revenue up to a certain point, and then 54 for larger companies. So there are some people, those are great. It's awesome to have some people being eligible for those, but there's obviously people that have fallen through the cracks on those as well. So, and we've seen that within our portfolio of tenants. Obviously we've got people from overseas and people that aren't Australian citizens that haven't qualified for those. So it does make it difficult for them to say, well, what can we do? The other thing, just quickly, is the rental grant, the COVID-19 rental grant, which is done through the RTA. So that's a cap of up to $500 per week for 4 weeks, so $2,000 total. That tenants can be apply for and be eligible for. Basically, that's a hardship grant. So if tenants have lost their job and they need this money to pay the rent, they're either homeless or at risk of becoming homeless, I think is the words on the website, is how you become eligible. So you do need to present information to say that you have lost your employment, or you've been dramatically your hours have been dramatically cut and therefore you're earning way less money, you can no longer afford the rent. So that's the other one that's available. That money gets paid to the agent. So the tenant doesn't see it, so it goes straight to the agent and then to the landlord for the rent payment. The thing with that is it is a loan, so it does at some stage have to be paid back by the tenant. So it will help them for now, but it's not a problem solver by any means,
Mm.
unfortunately. So there's a few good options out there for tenants, but yes, like I said, unfortunately some people have fallen through the cracks, which is those are the people that have sort of come to us and said, is there anything that you can do or the landlord can do to help? So, and there's been some really great stories from some of our landlords as well who have learnt that their tenants are struggling and have been in a position where they can offer some assistance,
Mm.
whether that be like a rental reduction or a rent-free period, whatever it might be. We are negotiating those sorts of things between tenants and landlords as well.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. And we've heard from the government and the articles that they're putting out there that they really encourage tenants and property owners to work together during this time. to
Yeah,
just work out some sort of agreement between them that can work. Obviously, it's, tenants have an issue and they're having a bit of a struggle and they're hoping to get some relief on their end. But, the landlord also, if the tenant has to move out and they can't pay their rent, then what happens to the landlord? They have to pay their mortgages, they have to pay their bills. So it is in their best interest to work together and work
absolutely.
out some sort of deal. Are you
That's the
finding that people are doing that? And how is that working for clients that you're working with?
Yeah, I mean, we are finding that for the most part. I mean, people are considering what's being offered. The, it really depends on the individual situation. Like you say, a lot of tenants are struggling, but the flip side of that is landlords are going through this as well, and a lot of them
Mm-hmm.
rely on this rent to pay for the mortgage. Not every landlord has multiple properties. A lot of them are like you or me. They are just, they've done really well in the early ages, and they bought a property, and then they've, got married, and they have one rental property, and that's it. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they might they will struggle if they don't get the rent. So that's been our recommendation, is to try to work together and try to
Mm-hmm.
mitigate between the two. So we're just the middleman trying to help everybody out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so we do sort of encourage tenants to, if they want to put forward a request, it needs to be like an official in writing request that we can
Mm-hmm.
present to the landlord. Of course, we do need to always have our landlord's interests um, at heart as well. So we need to do the checks to make sure that, yes, the tenant has lost employment, and there are some, again, criteria there that the tenant has to provide. But as long as they meet all of that and we take it to the landlord, and the landlord's in a position where they can offer some relief, we've seen some really great stories. I know of one from the Gold Coast where the rent was $1,400 per week, and the landlord reduced it to just $400 per week.
Oh,
Um,
wow. That's
yeah,
amazing.
because they were in the position where they could,
Yep.
and they obviously wanted to help. So there's some really great stories like that,
That's
which is
great.
really good to see. So it's just,
Mm.
yeah, it's about asking the question, and if owners can, I'm sure they will. But it's, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
mm,
No, for sure. That's a beautiful story. And I really hope that more people are in a position to do that and work that
yeah,
out. Obviously, not everyone is. We get that. But it is a difficult time because, if the tenants can't really make it work on their end, it really puts the landlords in a bad spot as well. Because if like we were mentioning, you and I were talking about this, we really don't want properties to sit vacant during this time.
yeah,
It's really uncertain. Obviously, properties are still, leasing. And if they
yeah,
were, able to put it on the market, it is possible to sell, but it is an uncertain time. So that is a risk for both parties.
yeah,
So that's really where we don't want to go, and that makes
absolutely,
sense.
yeah.
Now, in terms of evictions, what is there now put in place for that? Is there arrears or the rent arrears for 6 months? Putting a
Yeah,
freeze
so
on that? What's
yeah,
involved in that?
so the thing that's been put forward is a freeze on all evictions due to rent arrears. So once again, if the tenant's experiencing financial difficulties, distress, then they would have to go through these avenues that we've discussed, being the job seeker, keeper, the rental grant. If they don't um, if they're not eligible for any of those, then the next step is rental relief from the landlord.
Mhm.
Once again, if that agreement can't be made between the tenant and the landlord, there is a compulsory conciliation with the RTA that then needs to happen. So that's the next step. So if we can't, between the three parties, being the agent, tenant, landlord, come to an agreement on the rent, then the next step is RTA conciliation, which is all just done by a phone. Maybe they're doing Zoom these days, I don't know. But
Mm.
normally it's just a phone call where we would go through those steps. So the RTA can't enforce anything, though. They're really just there as like an unbiased opinion. But their knowledge and the fact that they are unbiased and talking to both sides might help come to some sort of agreement by talking to all parties. If that's not reached, then it's really at a standstill. What can we do next? Because that is a freeze on evictions for 6 months for tenants. So, not that I'm saying as agents we don't want to kick any tenant out during these times. Of course not. So it's really, well, what do we do for the landlords then? Because there's no agreement being made. So I think that's really where there's a bit of a crack in the system, which I know there's quite a few landlords that have raised those issues as well. And I
Hmm.
think that's why these things are being revisited and reviewed all the time. I think by next Wednesday, it's tabled again for Parliament. So we might have new developments by Wednesday next week. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yes. So at the moment, there's a freeze on evictions for arrears for 6 months. Yeah.
Yeah. So you bring up a great point. So really up until this last week, we didn't really see much relief from the landlord's perspective. So that was bringing up a lot of issues and concern on that end, totally understandable. But
Yeah.
now we're looking at landowners can apply for up to 3 months deferral of land
Um,
tax. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. So again, it's something they have to be eligible for, and I'm sure all the
Yeah.
eligibility is listed on the website. But yes, and this is available on McGrath's website, by the way, as well. So all of
Yes.
this information.
Yeah. I'll put that
Um,
link in this little
yeah,
copy
awesome.
here. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Perfect.
yes, so deferred or waived for land tax for 3 months, and then of course they can, if they want to, apply through their banks for mortgages to be frozen as well.
Deferred.
So
Yeah.
yeah, deferred.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and really at this stage, that's all that's really available to landlords,
Mhm.
which I think is largely the problem with why these issues have been. And I know it's something that McGrath's involved in, as well as a lot of other really big agencies throughout Australia, to try to see if there's anything else that can happen for these landlords, because like I said before, they're just normal people as well that are going through this. So they
Well,
need
yeah,
to
and they may have issues with their employment and their decreased,
exactly. Yeah.
income and all these other things that they're
Yeah.
dealing with. Like it's happening to everyone. It's not just one side of the
Yes.
coin. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So, tell me what your team is doing to really, try to coax people through this time.
Yeah, so I mean, initially when this all started, we kind of got on the front foot, especially with our tenants, and contacted all of them. Really, just to ask the question. This has been the very beginning when it was starting to happen and people were losing employment. We called all of our tenants to see how it had affected them,
Yeah.
and then kind of started piling a list, I guess, and this is for our landlord's best interest as well, to see if their property was going to be a risk for them. Um, it was obviously very difficult conversations for the team to have, but it needed to happen so that we could get an understanding of what tenants may require the help, if not now, maybe in a couple of weeks' time. So, because when we were making those phone calls, a few people had lost jobs, but a lot of people were unsure.
Yeah.
And then we'd hear from them in a couple of weeks, and they would say to us, "Okay, it's happened. I've lost my employment. What's my options?" So, at
Hmm.
least in that 2 weeks prior, we had at least made the phone call and been able to tell the landlord, look, your tenant is still employed right now, but in a couple of weeks' time, they're looking a little bit unsure. So there was at least a little bit of notice there. Um, Really, we've just been trying to make sure that both our tenants and landlords are aware of what options they have. So everything we've just discussed for the tenants went out in an email to them a couple of weeks ago. And then I know last week, John McGrath did a really great Zoom as well for our landlords that went out to them with some excellent information in it too. So that should went out in a link to everybody as well. And if it's not, then we can send it out.
Hmm.
But yeah, that we're just trying to make sure that everybody is aware, and then where we can negotiate on some of these leases, then we are. Of course, for our landlords, if we are negotiating the rent relief packages for tenants, or offering those sorts of things, we're recommending that we do it on a review basis. So we're putting these on contracts, so to say what the new rent will be, what the previous rent was, what the new rent will be, and
Hmm.
how long for the initial period, and then reviewing it where necessary. So
Hmm.
obviously at some stage this will end, and we don't want our landlords to be in a position where they're receiving less rent when tenants are employed again, or whatever it might be. So it's just
Yeah, of
important to
course.
make sure we're constantly reviewing it based on the
Yeah,
situation
and
as
I
well.
think most corporations and businesses are basically going through that 1 week at a time. Things are
Yeah,
changing week by
yeah,
week. So,
yeah,
we're seeing lots of people with reductions in income for, no extended period of time. It's just there's no end to it. We don't, because we don't know. So that could change. That could change week by week.
Yeah.
So it's super important that you guys are working for us and all of our landlords and tenants, just to make sure that they're always informed and just making sure they understand the options that they have. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
yeah,
We're all in this together. So we
we
want to make
are.
sure that everyone's aware. And we're getting phone calls from tenants that maybe miss the email, or that they just want to work out their options. And we'll happily take those phone calls as well, and try to talk people through it. But
Hmm.
all the information is there available to everybody, and
Hmm.
we'll help where we can too. But yeah, you're absolutely right. At this moment, we don't really want properties being vacant. That's the thing that's going to probably start to grow in the next couple of weeks. And the stats aren't really there at the moment. Obviously, this is unprecedented, so there's not much to go off.
Hmm.
But yeah, we are like, from a leasing side of things. There's still tenants out there that need properties. There's always going to be a need for that. Of course, right now there's less than maybe normal.
Hmm.
So it's really just about trying to match a tenant with a property, get them through it, even in these weird circumstances. So we're doing what we can to still show people through.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's going to be is the next big thing, is to, over the next few weeks, to see how many new properties come to market, and where that's at. Because yeah, I think we'll start to see a few from Airbnb and short-term rentals
Hmm.
coming back to the long-term market pool. So yeah, there
Yeah.
might be a bit of an increase in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. No, that's totally true. I think it's really important, as sales agents, as people in the kind of the property management space. It's so important to keep in touch with our clients week by week, and just chatting about what options they have, making sure that they know and are educated as to what's going on and all the new guidelines and things coming down from the government level.
Yep,
So that's all we can do. So we're just keeping in
absolutely.
touch with everyone, just making sure that they know what's going on.
Yep.
So again, I'm going to I'm going to include all of this information in the copy under this video, so that everyone has the links to our McGrath articles. And if anyone wants to get in touch with Bethany and her team, I'll put the link into your profile as well. So
Awesome.
we can just ask any questions you might have about if you're a tenant or landlord, or what options you have at this point. So thank you again, Beth,
Thank you.
and good. Take care. Stay
Yeah,
healthy. Stay
you
safe.
too. Thank you. Stay
Okay,
safe.
we'll see you
Stay
soon.
home.